Okay, let's just get right into it because The Two Towers starts with, I think, one of the most agonizing and deeply profound lessons in all of literature.
Absolutely.
And it all comes down to a scene that forces you, the listener, to really grapple with this idea of radical grace. We are talking about the end of Boromir.
We are. We're starting right at the fracture point of the Fellowship.
Yeah.
And it poses this core question that, makes this book feel like it was written for today.
It really does.
And the question is, how do you respond to catastrophic failure? I mean, think about what Boromir did. He, the proud warrior of Gondor, tried to steal the most dangerous weapon in Middle-earth.
From Frodo, from his friend.
Exactly. And his failure, his lapse, in that moment, it directly leads to Merry and Pippin getting captured. The entire mission is scattered to the winds. And then what happens? He's found moments later riddled with 20 Uruk-hai arrows. And yet, Aragorn, the man who will be king, kneels down and calls him a hero.
And that right there is where the book just instantly, it steps out of being a fantasy story and walks straight into our modern world.
I mean, we live in a world that we often call cancel culture, where one mistake, even a genuine one, can mean you're just gone.
In an exile.
Right. And you're expected to do this public apology tour, this groveling, just for a chance at rehabilitation. And Boromir's final moments, and maybe more importantly, Aragorn's reaction to them.
Yeah.
It feels like such a necessary, almost painful counterpoint to all of that.
It is a radical idea. It's Tolkien putting this concept right in front of you from page 1. Redemption, in his world, isn't something you earn by saying you're sorry.
Right.
It's not about a performance. It's written in blood. It's written in sacrifice. It's about what you choose to do when you've already lost everything, when the only thing you have left to give is your life.
So he failed the big test, the internal one.
He did. He gave in to the temptation of the ring. But then he conquered himself in his final moments by choosing to protect the weakest members of the group. That distinction, I think, is the bedrock of what grace means in this entire story. But let me push back on that a little bit. Because Boromir's failure was, it was catastrophic. Frodo leaves specifically because he knows he can't trust anyone, especially Boromir, after that.
No, you're right. The consequences were immense.
So when Aragorn looks at him and says, "You have conquered," is he being entirely honest? Or is that a calculated choice? Is it a future king deciding that grace and psychological solace for a dying man are more important than the brutal strategic truth?
That's the perfect question, and I think it shows you exactly why Aragorn is fit to be king. A true leader doesn't just judge the action, they judge the heart. They judge the final intent.
Okay.
So yes, he's offering grace, but I wouldn't call it entirely unearned. Boromir's conquest of himself was real. He could have run. The Uruk-hai weren't after him.
They were after the hobbits.
They were after the hobbits.
Sure.
And he chose to stand against 50 of Saruman's elite soldiers to buy them time. That's the act Aragorn is judging. Not the momentary lapse, but the final moral sacrificial act.
So welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack the core action of the Two Towers. We've spent weeks, tearing apart the sources, Tolkien's letters, early drafts, critical analyses, and we're ready to guide you through this really complex two-part narrative.
It is two-part, isn't it?
Completely. And this isn't just about epic battles and walking trees. It's about the deep philosophical questions of choice, loyalty, corruption, and the sheer hobbit cost of just holding on to hope when everything seems lost.
And our goal today is to really distill that for you, to separate these two narrative threads, because the book is split right down the middle. In the West, you have this war that's just heating up, it's accelerating. It's the free peoples versus the industrial machine of Saruman.
Right.
And at the same time, you have this desperate, draining psychological journey in the East, where Frodo and Sam are carrying this immense burden toward Mordor. And underneath both of those paths is this constant theme, choice. And how corruption doesn't just attack from the outside, it rots you from within.
Whether it's a magic ring or a poisonous advisor.
Exactly. It's the same battle on two different fronts.
So let's start that moment in the woods of Amon Hen. The Fellowship has just been violently shattered. Aragorn is running, crashing through the trees, trying to undo what's just happened. And he finds this scene of just total devastation.
And finality.
Yeah. Boromir is slumped against an oak tree, bleeding out. But he's surrounded by the bodies of, at least 20 Uruk-hai? He didn't go down easy.
No. That visual is so important. It's not just descriptive flair. It's the climax of his entire life story. He died fighting a hopeless rearguard action. And his confession to Aragorn is, it's so simple, but it carries the weight of his entire kingdom. his entire history.
She just lays it all out.
Everything. I tried to take the ring from Frodo, and he explains why. The ring didn't just tempt him with, generic power. It showed him what he loved most.
Gondor.
Gondor restored. His city, Minas Tirith, safe and shining. His father, Denethor, finally proud of him. It preyed on his deepest love and his deepest insecurity. And he admits it. I failed. Frodo was gone, and it's all my fault.
And this is the moment. This is where you see Aragorn isn't just a ranger anymore. This is the first true act of King Elessar. Instead of listing Boromir's failures, which, again, were strategically unforgivable,
Completely.
he gives him affirmation, that unearned respect. He says that incredible line, "You have conquered, few have gained such a victory."
And he means it. Because Boromir's victory was internal. It was conquering that desire for power that had just consumed him. You have to remember, the ring tempted every single one of them. Galadriel, Gandalf.
Everyone.
But Boromir was the first to fall. And it's almost because his motives were, in a way, noble. He wanted to save his people. But to then face death, surrounded, and use his last breath not to save himself, but to save the hobbits. That's the conquest Aragorn honors.
And Boromir's last words are a plea.
A question. He asks Aragorn to go to Minas Tirith to save his city. And Aragorn promises he will. It's only then, with that promise, that Boromir smiles and finds peace. He's been absolved by the one man who had every right to condemn him.
The aftermath of this, the funeral, is just as telling. They don't just, dig a hole in the ground.
No, it's a ritual. It's solemn. It's ancient.
Yeah.
They lay his body in one of the elven boats. They place his broken sword and his cloven horn on his chest, and they send him over the falls of Rauros. It's a funeral fit for a prince, for a king's son. It's the ultimate acknowledgement of who he was and, more importantly, what he did at the very end.
This idea of grace in the face of just massive failure, it's a tough lesson. It feels like a rejection of the way we often think now, where we demand perfection or we just cast people aside.
It's completely countercultural. And these leaders, Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, they're broken by this. But they can't dwell on it. They have to honor the sacrifice and then immediately choose what to do next.
Which brings us to that crossroads. The Fellowship is, for all intents and purposes, destroyed. You've got Frodo and Sam, who vanish. They're heading east, trying to get to Mordor alone.
And you've got Merry and Pippin, prisoners, being dragged north by Saruman's Uruk-hai, probably already halfway to Isengard.
So Aragorn is standing there with Legolas and Gimli, and he has two completely opposite paths to choose from. And neither of them looks good.
The tactical choice, the purely logical one. Any strategist would say you have to follow the ring bearer.
Of course.
The whole fate of Middle-earth is on that chain around Frodo's neck. You could even argue that's what Frodo wanted. He left so they could go fight the bigger war. The main objective has to be the ring.
But Aragorn doesn't do that. And this, again, is why he's the king. He makes a moral choice, not a strategic one. He chooses to go after the weakest members.
Yes. The ring bearer, for all his burden, has Sam. And the importance of his quest gives him a certain metaphysical protection, you might say.
But Merry and Pippin have nothing. They're just cargo for an enemy that sees them as disposable.
Exactly. So Aragorn's decision is simple, and it's immediate. We go after Merry and Pippin. And that single choice defines the entire Western plot of this book. It's the beginning of the return of a king who puts his people before the mission.
And that choice kicks off one of the most incredible physical feats in the entire series. The three hunters, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, they just start running.
On foot. Aragorn, the master tracker, is reading the ground like an open book, following the tracks of, 150 Uruk-hai who are moving at a terrifying pace.
Legolas is just gliding over the ground with that elven grace, barely leaving a footprint. And then you have Gimli.
Pounding along on his short legs, fueled by pure stubbornness and loyalty, refusing to be left behind.
Let's just pause on the numbers here for a second, because the book is specific. They cover nearly 135 miles in 3 days.
It's unbelievable.
They're not sleeping, they're not eating, they're chasing genetically engineered super soldiers bred for speed and endurance. It's like running a marathon every single day for 3 days straight in rough country, carrying weapons and armor.
It's an insane pace. It would kill a normal person. And it shows you the level of commitment, but also Aragorn's own almost superhuman nature. Their entire pursuit is driven by one thing, a moral duty to save their friends. And that pursuit is what leads them into the heart of Rohan.
As they're pushing themselves to the absolute limit, it's really important to connect this to when Tolkien was writing it. This is, 1944?
Largely, yeah.
He's watching the world burn, Fascism is tearing Europe apart. His own son is fighting in the war. So The Two Towers is deeply personal. It's a book about fighting against impossible odds when all hope seems lost. And it's about realizing the threat isn't just some big bad guy far away. It comes from within your own borders, too.
That is the perfect parallel. The political threat in the book mirrors the WWII context exactly.
Yeah.
It's not just about Sauron, the big external totalitarian regime. It's about the internal rot, the fifth column, Saruman. He's breeding Uruk-hai in the pits of Isengard, clear-cutting ancient forests to fuel his war machines, and placing his spies in the courts of kings. He's the enemy within, weakening the world while the big war in the east gets all the attention.
And this internal corrosion is why Rohan, this great kingdom of horse lords, is so paralyzed when we first encounter it, which leads us to that meeting with Eomer.
Exactly. On the third day of the chase, when they're about to collapse from exhaustion, they run into 120 riders of Rohan. They crest a hill at dawn, and there they are. Their leader, Eomer, third marshal of the Riddermark, immediately confronts them. He's suspicious, hostile even.
And we find out that Eomer himself is a victim of Saruman's strategy. He's been banished by his own uncle, King Théoden.
Right, and the reason is crucial. Théoden's chief advisor, a man named Grima Wormtongue, convinced the king that Eomer was a traitor, that he was raising an army to take the throne.
He used the king's own paranoia against him.
He weaponized the king's trust. So Omer and his loyal men are riding as exiles, trying to defend the very borders that their own king, under Wormtongue's influence, has abandoned.
So the riders surround them. Aragorn explains what they're doing, chasing Uruk-hai, looking for two hobbits, and Eomer's face just falls.
Because he knows that band of Uruk-hais, his riders had ambushed them just the day before. He tells them, "We destroyed them all. We burned the bodies."
And for Aragorn, that's just complete 3 days of nonstop running, 135 miles, for nothing.
But he doesn't give up. He's a ranger. He searches the scorched battlefield, the pile of burnt corpses, and he finds something impossible.
Tiny footprints.
Tiny footprints, not the heavy-clawed boots of the Uruks, small ones leading away from the battle and straight into the dark, menacing Fangorn forest. The hobbits escape.
And Eomer, seeing this, seeing their determination, he makes a kingly call. Even though he's in exile, he gives them horses, Hasufel and Arod, a massive gift of respect.
A crucial gift. They ride toward Fangorn, this ancient, watchful forest that's known to be hostile to outsiders. They follow the tracks into the gloom, and that's when they see him. A figure in white robes, leaning on a staff, impossibly bright.
The light is so blinding they can hardly look at him. And their first thought, the only logical thought, is that it has to be Saruman. Their enemy has found them.
The tension in that moment is incredible. They're about to fight for their lives, and then the figure speaks, and the voice is familiar, but different, deeper, stronger, filled with a new authority.
I am Gandalf the White, and I come back to you now at the turn of the tide.
It's one of the greatest entrances in all of literature. The wizard they saw fall to his death in Moria is standing right in front of them, but he's been transformed.
We have to talk about that transformation, because this isn't just, a magical respawn. He explains what happened.
He does. He fought the Balrog for 10 days. From the lowest dungeon to the highest peak of the mountain. He killed it, but the fight killed him too. He perished. His story was over.
But he was sent back.
He was sent back by a higher power with a new mission and greater strength. And this is the key difference. Gandalf the Grey was a guide. He was patient. He worked in the shadows, nudging events, advising people.
Gandalf the White has run out of patience.
Completely. He's seen the cosmic stakes. He knows what failure means. He is no longer just a friend of hobbits. He is now the active enemy of Sauron and Saruman, here to unite the free peoples by force if necessary. He's operating with a terrifying urgency.
Which raises the big question, right? If he's so powerful now, why doesn't he just go and, take on Sauron himself?
And the books are very clear about this. This was never supposed to be a war won by wizards. He's not here to replace one dark lord with a good one. His power is there to level the playing field, to give the courage of men, elves, and hobbits a fighting chance. He's here to inspire them to make their own free, moral choices.
So he leads them to Edoras, the capital of Rohan, and this is where we get one of the most modern themes in the entire book. The slow, insidious nature of psychological manipulation.
Personified by Grima Wormtongue.
Oh, absolutely. We meet King Théoden, and he's a wreck. He's 71, but he looks 90. He's stooped, his eyes are vacant, he can barely hold himself up. He's a shadow of the great king he once was.
And hovering next to him, constantly whispering in his ear, is Wormtongue, disguising poison as wise counsel, running the kingdom into the ground in the king's name.
And the way he did it isn't magic. It's a textbook case of what we would call gaslighting today.
It's 2026 problems in a medieval setting. Wormtongue needed three things: access, patience, and isolation.
That's it.
He got close to the king. He spent years whispering, slowly eroding Théoden's confidence, convincing him he was old, weak, tired. And then he drove away anyone loyal, like Omer, leaving the king completely dependent on the one person who was destroying him.
It's corporate sabotage. It's a toxic relationship. It is purely psychological warfare.
And Gandalf walks into the Golden Hall, and he understands this immediately. Wormtongue tries to have him arrested, but Gandalf isn't there to fight guards. He's there to fight a war of words, a war for a man's mind.
He walks right up to the throne, raises his staff, and just fills the room with light. He's burning away the fog of Wormtongue's lies.
And you get that famous confrontation. Saruman, speaking through Théoden's mind, snarls, "You have no power here, Gandalf the Grey."
But he's not Gandalf the Grey anymore.
Exactly. And his response is so powerful. "I will release you from the spell."
Right.
The light flares and Théoden gasps. He sits up, his eyes clear. He sees his hall, his people, and his betrayer for the first time in years. His voice comes back, strong and deep. He is restored.
His first act is to ask for his sword, Aragorn. And he looks at Wormtongue, the man who stole years of his life. He could have him executed on the spot.
And everyone would have cheered.
Right. But in an act that echoes what Aragorn did for Boromir, he chooses mercy. He banishes him.
A noble choice, but a strategically costly one. Wormtongue immediately flees to Isengard to tell Saruman that Rohan is awake and preparing for war.
Which forces Théoden's hand. He restores Éomer and he makes the call. Evacuate everyone to Helm's Deep, the fortress in the mountains, because he knows Saruman's army is coming, and it's coming now. So we have to shift gears now. While all this is happening in the West, this resurrection, this call to arms, we have to go back to the East, to Frodo and Sam.
And it's a completely different kind of story. It's slow, it's agonizing, and it's almost entirely internal.
The journey alone is so much worse for Frodo. The ring is getting heavier with every step he takes toward Mordor, not just physically, but psychologically.
It's actively working on him now, whispering, trying to isolate him. And its main target is his only support system, Sam.
It's telling him Sam is going to betray him, that Sam secretly wants the ring for himself.
Oh.
It's pure paranoia, designed to break his spirit.
And on top of that, they're being stalked. Every night they hear this horrible, wet, coughing, hissing sound. They see glimpses of pale hands and huge, bulging eyes in the dark.
Until Sam, ever the practical one, sets a trap with the elven rope from Lorien.
And in the middle of the night, the trap springs. And what they find is, it's worse than an orc. It's Gollum.
And Gollum he is the physical embodiment of addiction. This is what 5 centuries of obsession looks like.
He's this pale, skeletal creature, skin stretched tight over his bones. He used to be a hobbit-like person named Sméagol, but the ring preserved his life while it completely annihilated his soul. It took his wants and turned them into needs, and turned those needs into a devouring madness.
What's so terrifying about it, though, is Frodo's reaction. He doesn't just see a monster. He feels a kind of kinship with him.
A horrible, warped kinship. He looks at Gollum and he sees a mirror. He sees what he could become, and that recognition, this is my future, is what makes the dynamic so chilling. We've all had obsessions, but this is it personified.
So in that moment of shared trauma, Frodo makes maybe the most dangerous choice of the whole book. He shows him mercy.
Or folly. Sam certainly thinks it's folly.
Frodo makes Sam release Gollum and he strikes a deal. Guide us through the secret ways to Mordor, and you can live.
Sam hates it. He absolutely hates it. His gut is screaming that this creature will betray them the first chance it gets. But Frodo is determined. Maybe he sees the flicker of Sméagol still inside. Or maybe the ring is already clouding his judgment, pushing him toward this codependent relationship with the only other person who understands its burden.
So Gollum agrees, and he leads them through one of the most disturbing landscapes in the entire series, the Dead Marshes.
This vast swamp where ancient armies fell in a great battle and their bodies just never decayed. They lie right under the surface of the black water, their faces perfectly preserved in expressions of agony.
And at night, these spectral lights, the corpse candles, flicker over the bodies, trying to lure travelers off the path to their doom.
And this is where you see how weak Frodo is becoming. The ring is playing with his mind. He looks into the water and sees the faces of people he knows calling to him. He's hypnotized.
And he falls in. He just plunges into the water, and it's Sam who has to save him. Sam is the anchor to reality. He doesn't see ghosts. He sees his master drowning. He pulls him out, cleans him off, and keeps them moving.
And the book notes that Gollum watches this whole thing with this intense, unreadable expression. For a second, you see a flicker of something, maybe concern, maybe an old memory of friendship, and then it's gone, replaced by that old hunger as he stares at the ring around Frodo's neck.
That ambiguity is just, it's masterful.
They finally get through the marshes, and they arrive at the Black Gate of Mordor, and it's impossible. A massive wall of iron and rock, thousands of orcs, watchtowers. There is no way in.
It's the end of the road. Frodo is in complete despair.
But Gollum pulls on his sleeve and whispers about another way, a secret way, a dark, terrifying tunnel,
The Pass of Cirith Ungol.
which he ominously mentions is guarded by something ancient and terrible. But it's their only option. They have to trust him.
And as they turn away from the gate, Frodo keeps trying to reach that little bit of good in him. He keeps calling him Smeagol.
And that's the tiny glimmer of hope. When he's called Smeagol, Gollum seems a little less twisted. It sets up the huge philosophical question for their journey. Can a soul that has been so completely consumed by evil for 500 years actually be redeemed?
We're left on that cliffhanger as the story snaps back to the west, where the war is about to break.
Back in Rohan, things are moving at lightning speed. Théoden's people, 10,000 of them, are evacuating to Helm's Deep. But the scouts come back with the worst possible news.
An army of 10,000 Uruk-hai is marching from Isengard.
The odds are just. They're impossible. Helm's Deep has a garrison of maybe 300 soldiers. With the farmers and old men and boys they've gathered, they might have 1,000 defenders in total.
10,000 against 1,000.
It's a slaughter waiting to happen. Théoden knows this. They aren't going there to win. They're going there to decide how they're going to die.
And this is where Tolkien is talking directly to us, I think. 10,000 against 1,000. That's the scale of the problems we face today. Climate change, political division, things that feel so big they're unwinnable. And the choice Théoden has is the same one we have. Do you give up, or do you stand and fight anyway? Do you fall on your feet or on your knees?
So they prepare for a last stand. Old men are picking up swords they haven't held in decades. Boys who should be in a field are being handed pikes. It's desperation.
And then a glimmer of hope. A company of elves from Lorien arrives, led by Haldir. It's not enough to change the math of the battle, but the morale boost is immense.
And you can't overstate the importance of that. Elves and men haven't fought side by side like this for centuries. It's the healing of an old wound, the free peoples finally uniting against a common enemy.
The Uruk-hai arrive at sunset. They fill the entire valley, and they just stand there in perfect disciplined ranks, banging their swords on their shields. It's psychological warfare before the first arrow is even fired.
And then the assault begins. The elves are devastatingly effective. Aragorn is a whirlwind of destruction on the wall. Gimli is cleaving through Uruks. But for every one they kill, 2 more climb the ladders. They're just being worn down by sheer numbers.
And then Saruman plays his trump card. Not magic, but technology.
Industrial warfare. His Uruks pack a drainage culvert under the main wall with explosives. The devilry of Orthanc. A single Uruk makes a suicide run with a torch.
And the explosion just rips a 20-foot hole in the deeping wall. The fortress is breached. The battle is, for all intents and purposes, lost. They fall back to the inner fortress, the Hornburg, but they're trapped.
Aragorn finds Théoden, and the king is defeated. He's just watching the sun come up, waiting for the end, and Aragorn gives him that final piece of counsel, that last choice.
Ride out with me, ride out and meet them.
It's not a strategy. It's an act of defiance, a statement. If we die as kings of the Mark, charging our enemies, not cowering behind a door.
So at dawn, as the Uruks are about to break down the final gate, the doors fly open, and Théoden and Aragorn lead 100 horsemen in a hopeless charge straight into an army of thousands.
It should have been the end. But as they ride out, a horn sounds from the hills above, and it's Gandalf.
He's returned, and he's not alone. He's brought 2,000 Rohirrim with him, led by Omer. They charge down the slope like an avalanche, crashing into the rear of the Uruk army.
The Uruks, caught completely by surprise, break and flee. They run straight for the perceived safety of Fangorn Forest, and that's when the forest itself wakes up.
The Huarns, these ancient, silent, angry trees, they move in, surrounding the fleeing army.
And we have to be clear, these aren't just trees. They are ancient spirits, filled with a slow, burning rage for what Saruman has done to their brethren. They envelop the Uruk-hai, and by sunrise, the army is gone. Every last one. Rohan has survived.
And that victory was only possible because, at the exact same time, Merry and Pippin were waging their own war, fulfilling the moral choice Aragorn made to save them.
After they escaped into Fangorn, they stumbled around until they met him. Treebeard, an Ent.
The shepherd of the forest, 14 feet tall, skin like bark, and a voice that sounds like creaking wood. And he thinks in centuries. He is impossibly slow.
No, don't be hasty, is his motto.
Right. And the hobbits have to explain everything to him. The war, the fellowship, Saruman's betrayal, and what finally gets through to him isn't the war of men, it's what Saruman did to the trees.
Cutting down ancient groves, burning the land to fuel his forges. That is the betrayal Treebeard understands. That's a crime against nature itself.
So he calls an Entmoot, a council of the Ents. It takes them 3 full days to decide what to do.
But when they finally decide, their anger is like a force of nature. It's slow to build, but once it's unleashed, it's unstoppable.
Yeah.
The Ents go to war. They march on Isengard.
And Saruman's fortress, which was built to withstand armies of men, was not built to withstand an angry forest. The Ents tear down the stone walls like they're paper.
They're impervious to arrows. They just shrug off fire. And then Treebeard himself walks up to the great river dam that Saruman had built.
And just rips it apart with his bare hands.
The river comes roaring back, flooding the entire circle of Isengard. It drowns the forges, the pits, all the machinery of war. Saruman is left trapped in his tower, a prisoner on a stone island in a lake of his own making.
So when Gandalf and Théoden ride to Isengard, they find this absurdly wonderful scene of Merry and Pippin sitting on the ruins, smoking pipeweed, as if they've just had a pleasant picnic.
Saruman's army is gone, his fortress is destroyed, but he has one weapon left, his voice.
This is his last stand. He comes out on his balcony and he speaks to them, and his voice is just pure manipulation. It's honey and reason and apologies. It's so persuasive that for a moment, even Théoden starts to weaken.
But Gandalf is immune to it now. He offers Saruman one last chance to surrender. Saruman refuses, full of pride and contempt. And so Gandalf delivers the final blow.
Without even touching him, he raises his hand and says, "Saruman, your staff is broken." And from a distance, the staff in Saruman's hand just shatters. His power is gone. He's nothing more than a bitter old man, trapped in a tower with worm tongue, defeated by hobbits and trees. So let's pull back. The war in the West is won, for now. What are the big takeaways from this huge, sprawling narrative?
Well, it defines what the two towers really are. You have Orthanc, Saruman's tower, and Barad-dûr, Sauron's.
Yeah.
They represent these massive, unbeatable forces of industrial tyranny. But the book shows you they can be beaten. The moment someone, usually the smallest person, refuses to kneel.
And it completely redefines what a hero is. It's not the person with the magic sword. It's the person who just takes one more step when it would be so much easier to stop.
It's Frodo, still walking. It's Théoden, charging into hopeless odds. It's Gimli, running for 3 days out of pure loyalty.
That's why this feels like more than just a fantasy story. It feels like a field manual for surviving today. It teaches you resilience. It teaches you to spot manipulation like worm tongues. And it teaches you that sometimes the most powerful forces for change are the ones nobody sees coming. The hobbits, the Ents.
And you have to remember the man writing it. Tolkien had seen the trenches of World War I. He was watching his own son fight in World War II. He knew what it cost to hold on to hope when the world is burning down around you. That personal experience is woven into every single page.
And just some of the details are amazing. Aragorn's 135-mile run is a legendary feat of endurance. But then you have the Entmoot taking 3 days to make one decision. It's this beautiful contrast between urgent action and slow, deliberate wisdom.
But the most important takeaway, I think, is that this is only the end of the beginning. The main war hasn't been won. It's just been postponed. Saruman's dealt with, but Sauron is still in his dark tower. He's probably angrier and more focused now. And the ring, the actual source of all this, is still out there, slowly poisoning its bearer. The fight isn't over. The stakes just got higher.
You're left feeling like you're in the eye of the storm. They won a battle, a huge one, but the war is just getting started.
Exactly. They bought themselves some time against impossible odds.
So if we had to boil this whole deep dive down, I think the 2 key words are choice and conquered. Every single character, from Boromir to Théoden to the Ents, they all faced a moment where giving up was the logical thing to do. But they made a moral choice to act. They conquered their fear, their despair, and their own self-interest. And so we want to leave you with a question to think about today. What small act of courage, what small person's one more step is going to change the course of things in your world right now? Whether you're facing down a worm tongue at work or just trying to put one foot in front of the other toward a goal that feels impossible, remember the power of that unearned grace and the simple, relentless courage of fighting on. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.